Well, hello, Quest. I want to say hi. This is Thursday, November 19th, and we want to communicate with you on all the things that are going on. Originally, our newsletter for this week was designed to maybe talk about the Gospel of Matthew, and especially chapters 8 and 9 that we've been hanging out in recently. And I want to make sure that we touch base on that because it's a really important couple of chapters, I think, because it talks about the authority that Jesus possessed and he demonstrated in so many different ways. And he's demonstrated it over nations and over nature. He demonstrates it over the demonic. He demonstrates it over death. He demonstrates his authority. And really, at the end of the day, probably the most important decision we all make is, does he actually have authority in our lives? Does he actually is he the owner of my life? Do we follow him? Now, we're not talking about some sort of weird, robotic, religious kind of thing. We're talking about, is there a real God who is the creator, the sustainer, and the redeemer of life, that he knows me and he loves me and he wants everything that is for human flourishing, not just in my life, but in the community. And not only the community, but the nation, and beyond that to the whole world. Is it his desire, is it his intent to love us so deeply, like a husband and a wife love each other, to love so deeply it is for each other's good. And that is what we really believe in, the authority that God has and the authority that Christ has, that it is for human flourishing. And yet we have all decided to go the opposite direction and decided to live life on our own terms. And I think as we look around the world, we see the results. And we see the results not just in others, but in ourselves, in the brokenness of our own lives, and the need to have redemption, the need to have healing, a need to have a change that happens from the inside, not from the outside. Nothing ever really changes if we just do it on the outside. But when we have internal change, and it's connected to the vertical relationship with God, then the horizontal begins to fall into place because we begin to live that out. So I've been enjoying Matthew. I hope you have too, but we're going to talk in the next few weeks about the rest of chapter 9 and his both possessing and demonstrating the authority that he has. Because in Matthew 28 it says that all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to Christ. And all of it belongs to him. And so we're trying to figure out how to live our lives that way. But I wanted to talk a little bit today, too, about the new protocols that the county has come down with. And so it feels like we have taken 2 steps forward and now 1 step back. And with all the numbers of the pandemic expanding or getting bigger, it seems like reasonable things for the county to do. Now, I can't tell you that I know all the details of the pandemic, but I can know the details of what the county is asking us to do, the mandates that they've put. And actually, in a strange way, they don't affect us very much or even at all. We still are required to have only 25%, which we have been doing all along. And so on Sunday mornings, both downstairs for kids ministry and for our worship services upstairs, we can remain exactly like we've been doing it. So we want to continue. We'll keep it at under 25%. We'll keep doing 2 services, and we'll keep asking people to register so that we know and can be really responsible with people's attendance and making sure that there's room and we're communicating. So nothing really changes. We want to still be careful where you want to have face coverings, distancing, making sure and encouraging people to be careful what they touch and who they touch it with and all that kind of stuff. But I think we're in pretty good shape. And I feel like you guys have been amazingly responsible and helpful in this whole process. So I just want to thank you. And I feel like our staff have done an incredible job of working hard, being patient, working with people, working overtime, making sure that everything is in good shape. So those are the protocols that we're going to continue with. So things are pretty much the same. So we'll just continue there. And if we need to make further adjustments, we will. So we're just kind of waiting to see how this all unfolds. I want to say a couple more things, though. One is, it seems as if for both interpersonally as a community and as a nation and really as a world, people are tired. People are discouraged. We were, I think, all hoping that this pandemic would pass us by in 3, 4, 5 months. And now it clearly hasn't, and it seems to be kind of amping up. So people seem tired, frustrated, worn a little thin. And I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in people around me. I know that you feel that too, as some of there are tensions relationally that happen as a result. Sometimes I even know of several, family divisions that have happened. It's really painful and hard to watch, whether it be over the pandemic, over face coverings, over the political issues and the racial issues of our day. They seem to be wearing thin, and I just want to encourage you on a couple of things. First of all is pace yourself. This is ending up to be a longer run than we thought it might be. This is going, and so we can't sprint and just wear yourself out. You have to have a pace. So pace yourself through this. Know your limits, know what you can do and what you can't do, and protect yourself. And what I mean by that is protect yourself in your health, mentally, physically. Take breaks, exercise, take time off. Make sure you're not wearing yourself so thin that you don't have any margins in life to be able to respond to the difficulties of life. Okay, so and spend time with the Lord. That really is going to help in this whole thing to gain perspective from Him. The other thing I want to say is to persevere. It's not a real popular word. It's nothing we talk about all that often. To persevere through the difficulty. Now, keep your pace, keep your boundaries, but to persevere. I'd like to read a passage out of James, and it's in James chapter 1, and it says this. It says, "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger." That seems to be opposite in our culture right now. People are very quick to speak, slow to listen, and we're very quick to anger. But it goes on and says, "For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." And I think we clearly see that in our culture, in ourselves. Our anger seldom, if ever, in fact, never produces what God wants to produce. So in verse 21, he goes on and he says, "Therefore put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. But be doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving yourselves." He wants us to be able to not just know His word, but to do His word. He wants us to put the rubber to the road. And I think that's really good advice at this point. I think we need it. I think our culture needs it. Our community needs it, for us to really do what we know to be right. Verse 23, "For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror. For he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he was like. But the one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, he will be blessed in his doing. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained by the world." So my thought is this: in the midst of all the chaos that's going on around us, and sometimes infiltrates deeply inside of us, let's be people who care for those who are disadvantaged, who are disenfranchised, who are left out, who are on the edges of society, who are lonely, who are alone, who are running difficult. That might mean the elderly, that might mean the handicapped. Well, I don't know. But to reach out to people, because people are getting tired and they're feeling very alone. And all the really destructive numbers in our culture are up. Child abuse, suicide, family conflicts, domestic violence. Those are all up right now. And I think we need to take a step back, take a deep breath, kind of let the Spirit of God fill us, and then to live well, to live with a kindness that is so opposite of where our culture's at. It's become a very mean culture. And I think at times we have become very mean along with it. And so our goal is to love, to care, and to be unstained by the world around us. And you guys, if we've blown it, or if you're out there and you think, well, I've already messed that up, but here's the deal: God's forgiveness is very real. And He can set things new again. He can give you a whole new spirit, a new heart in all of this. So it just means to stop and to do business with Him and with others around us, and then to move forward, to be His people. The last thing I want to talk about just briefly is this coming week is going to be Thanksgiving. It's a week from today. I don't know about you, but this whole year seems very discombobulated for me. And so even the fact that fall came, I wasn't quite ready for it. I can hardly believe that Thanksgiving is this week. And that Christmas is just a little ways away. I mean, it just seems so crazy, right? We just live in such a chaotic world. But I want to encourage all of us to prepare ourselves for these important holidays, these important times to stop, reflect, and to reflect on really important things like family, and maybe even more importantly, to reflect about who God is, the role He plays in my life, and to really give myself to it, and to be a person of peace in the midst of that. So those are 4 things we've talked about: Matthew, the protocols, being tired, but also Thanksgiving. So I trust that God is still working in your life in a really meaningful way. And we continue to want to have Him use Quest corporately. And it's not a building. It's not this building you see behind me. It is really people, right? It's us, the body of Christ together. And that we want to invite the skeptic and the inquirer to join with us and to discover the reality of a living God who is preparing for us a life. All right, you guys, take care. We will see you when we see you. All right, be well.